In this video, I want to talk about using the subtraction tool to better identify co-elution in Agilent MassHunter software. In this data file, looking at the peak at about 12.5 to 13 minutes, I know that we have a smooth increase up, but there's a little bump about a third of the way through. That little bump is indicating that we might have co-elution. To start, I just want to identify what the majority of the peak is, so I can click anywhere kind of away from that bump and probably get a good identification. I'm going to right-click my preview, copy to spectra, right-click my spectrum results, and identify that spectra. So it looks like the majority of this peak is just acetaminophen, and acetaminophen is primarily this 109, 151, 80, 43 fragment. When I walk the chromatogram, I want to see an additional fragment that pops up, something that doesn't belong to acetaminophen. So it looks all the same as I'm walking up to that bump, but as I get onto that bump, I can look in the lower left and you see this 114 fragment popped up from not being on the peak to then being on the peak. So I want to be able to represent a fragment from acetaminophen, likely this 109, and then a fragment from my currently unknown chemical, likely this 114. To represent those, I'm going to right click on my chromatogram, go down to extract chromatograms, and I'm going to use something called an EIC, or extracted ion chromatogram, where I can then plot 109 to represent my acetaminophen and 114 to represent my unknown chemical. Now, in terms of doing the subtraction, to subtract the red, or to identify the red chemical, it's really not an issue. Anywhere I select, pretty much that's not right on the green, I have an overwhelming amount of red, so I get that acetaminophen answer. But when I try to click on the green, even at the apex of the green right here, I have this amount of 114 and so much more of that 109 from acetaminophen blocking it. So I need to put my subtraction in a place where I have more red, the thing that we don't want to identify, than we have red interference at that green peak. So basically just, I'm going to put my subtraction from somewhere on the right. Here looks good. I want to define this as my background subtract, so I can just right-click the spectrum preview and move that scan, the one that came out at 12.7, to my background subtract. Now, I want to identify green, so I'm going to select where I have most green possible, which looks to be right about there. I'm going to right-click my spectrum preview, copy it over to my spectrum results, and from my spectrum results, I can apply that background subtract that we defined earlier. So let me right-click it and go up to Subtract Background Spectra. Watch what happens to that 109, 151, and 80 from acetaminophen when I do that. They pretty much go completely away, leaving that 114 that we noticed popping up to be our primary ion. Now to identify this, I just need to right-click it and identify spectra. And that would be the chemical that was hiding behind the acetaminophen. I hope this helps.